Hey everybody, I just wanted to come to you today, make a quick video about how to look up definitions to words that you might find in the text that maybe you know a little bit about the word, but it would be helpful if you really understood more about what that word means. So if you remember in the video last week, Melissa and I, the live video on Friday night, were talking about what the word redemption means, or what the word chosen or predestined, some of these more difficult words. And so today I'm going to jump into chapter 2, and I'm going to actually show you how I use the website blueletterbible.com to look up definitions to words in their original language. So here we go. Okay, let's get started. Right off the bat, you can see that I am at blueletterbible.org. This is where, this is my main website that I use when I want to look up definitions of words. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go here into search the Bible. Actually, the first thing I'm going to do is get my translation correct. I'm going to use ESV. Then I'm going to type in Ephesians chapter 2. Okay. I want you to just follow my cursor when I'm going to kind of walk you through some things. You can see up here, this is where you can choose what translation you want to pick. Something that you do need to understand, we talked about this in the live video, but in case you haven't watched it, the two main translations that are word for word, meaning they take the original language, whether Hebrew or Greek or Aramaic, and they're translating it into our language as best as they can at word for word. Now, sometimes you'll notice that word for word translations read a little bit clunkier, and that's just because they're trying to be faithful to the original language. When you get versions like NLT, NIV, CSB, the Message Bible, actually, the Message Bible doesn't even count because that's really a paraphrase. That's an interpretation of Eugene Peterson. But the NIV, the NLT, the CSB, these are thought for thought translations. So as I talked about, the one downfall of using this translation is the translators themselves have already begun to add their own interpretation into the translation you are reading. So if you remember how I said, save those good old study Bibles and the notes and the blogs and the podcasts and the commentaries until later. If you are using NIV, or if you are hopping around from an ESV down to an NLT or an NIV to figure out how to mark certain words, what you're doing is you are allowing the translators of those thought for thought, translations to tell you who they think that person is talking about. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to use ESV. Another thing that you need to know is that there is a big concordance. See this right here, Strong's? Actually, this is a concordance where the majority, almost every word in the Bible has been connected with a simple definition. It's called a concordance. And we're going to be using Strong's a lot. Here's the problem. Strong's was done connected with the NASB, the New American Standard Bible Translation. So when you're looking for a word in ESV and you click on the list, which I'll show you in a minute, it's very possible you won't find the word. And I'll give you a very good example right here in verse 3. This word passions that you see in ESV, Strong's translates that through NASB as lusts. So let me actually take you there and show you. When you want to go look up a word, so we'll just use passions as our first word, you're going to go over here to the verse. You see how it highlights red? Click on it. It's going to drop down here. It's going to give you some options. This is what we want to have, interlinear. We're going to look at, explain that in a minute. Bibles, cross-reference, commentaries, dictionaries, miscellaneous. These are all just tools and tabs you can click on if you need to, okay? Right now, we're just here for the concordance. So this is Strong's. We want to do Strong's concordance, okay? Notice it's in the NASB. So among them two, all formerly lived in the lusts of our flesh, not passions. So just be careful when you're looking through there, and just be aware that the Strong's Concordance uses an NASB translation. Okay, if you don't know how to pronounce this word and you like that sort of thing, I love to hear how it's pronounced. You can click right here and check this out. It will talk to you.
Strong's G, 1939. Epithumia. Epithumia.
That's kind of cool. Epithumia. That's how you pronounce it. Notice that this is actually the Greek, right? So this is the Greek word, epithumia. This is the root word that epithumia comes from, which means you can actually click on that and find out more about the etymology. I mean, guys, you can dive as deep as you want to go, but for your purposes, I would suggest just stick on the top level. You don't need to deep dive into all these root words and etymology and stuff. Just click here. So epithumia, we're going to click on G1939. That's the Strong's Concordance number. That takes us here. Here's your Greek. Here's your transliteration. That is the English words used to make it where we can speak it out loud. Because obviously, I don't know how to say that. This is how you pronounce it. Again, you can hear it. This is the root word where you can deep dive into the etymology. You can look at the part of speech. It's a feminine noun. You can go down here. Here's the two things I want you to see. Number one, the outline of biblical usage. This is just the basic ways that this word will be seen in the NASB. Desire, craving, longing, desire for what is forbidden, and lust. That's just your real simple definitions. If you do nothing else, that's fine. This shows you how KJV, King James Version, translates it. It translates it lust 31 times, whatever that word is, 3 times, desire and lust after. Here's your Strong, epithumia, a longing especially for what is forbidden, whatever that word is, desire, lust after. So you can see how it just is simple, repeated. This is a lexicon down here where you can get even further into how the word is used in history. I don't really use that very much. I would suggest just sticking to the basics. This is my other thing. You've heard me mention Vines before. This is just a dictionary that goes a little bit deeper into what that word means. Click on that. And you can see that this word, epithumia, can be translated covet, covetousness as a noun, lust, whatever that word is, concupiscence. I don't know what that means. You can also look down here. You can see that it's a desire, a craving, a longing, mostly of evil desires, which makes sense because Paul seems to be talking about it in a negative way. He's not using that word passions in a positive way like we do in our culture today. Like I'm passionate about being pro-life, or I'm passionate about the word of God. That's a positive inflection. That's not the way that Paul is talking about that word. Here's our verse right here, Ephesians 2:3. So this word lust is a noun and a verb. It denotes a strong desire of any kind, the various kinds being frequently specified by some adjective. The word is used as a good desire in these passages. Everywhere else, it has a bad sense. So you can tell that in ours, it refers to those evil desires which are ready to express themselves in bodily activity. Whoa! They are equally the lusts of the flesh. That verse. There's our verse, Ephesians 2:3. Okay, so that's Vines. Just gives you, more. And when you do Vines, you do want to continue to scroll down until you find the verse that is the verse you're looking in. And that will tell you this is the direct definition connected to the context of Ephesians 2:3, because there's my Ephesians 2:3. All right, I'm going to click out of there. And I'm going to go back. Let's go back to I'm going to click out of there again to click to X. Sorry. X out. Okay, here's our chapter again. Let's do a simple dive into the word dead. Let's see what that word dead means. And I'll tell you why. Watch this. And you were dead in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked. So that's a real big contrast. Dead and walking. It's literally the walking dead. So let's find out what this word dead means. I want to see if it actually means dead like we think of dead, like dead buried in the ground, or if there's another connotation. So if it's in Ephesians 2:1, let's click on it. Boom. Let's go down here. So the NASB obviously translates that word dead as well. The word is, let's see, nekros. Let's see if I'm right.
Strong's G, 3498, nekros. Nekros.
All right, a little bit of rolling the R's there. Nekros. let's go click on the Strong's Concordance number. There's your transliteration, nekras. That's how you pronounce it. From an apparently primary nikos, a corpse. So obviously this word has a connection to a dead thing, like we think of dead, physically dead. But let's keep going down. Okay, here we go. Biblical usage. It's used like properly, one that has breathed his last or lifeless. That makes sense. Deceased, departed, one whose soul is in heaven or hell. Destitute of life, without life or animate. We know this one right here, by the way, deceased, departed, one whose soul is in heaven or hell. That's not what our word is, obviously, because in the very next verse, he talks about walking around. So we know that this is not right for what our verse is. Spiritually dead, destitute of a life that recognizes and is devoted to God because given up to trespasses and sins. That sounds more like what Paul's talking about. So notice, we're talking about a spiritual condition here, not a physical condition. That's important. Let's go up and see what Vines, if they have anything to add. I'm going to scroll up here. Dead. There's our verse, Ephesians 2:1. So our word dead is this definition: the actual spiritual condition of unsaved men. Men obviously would be men and women, humans. Okay, so it's real simple. There's not a lot there. That's a nice one. You can write that down real quickly. Dead means spiritually dead. Your spiritual condition is that you are inactive as respects doing right, destitute of force or power, inoperative. You are spiritually dead. That's a very important theological point to make, connected to what Paul is teaching us, even in Ephesians chapter 1. And then, of course, if you notice how he starts off here, this is the very opening of his verse. And back in the day when he was writing these letters, there was no chapter break, right? So he's ending chapter 1 with that beautiful prayer, and then he starts with "and." So make sure when you read this, you're connecting chapter 1. Let's see how he ends. Chapter 1 talks about, Paul wants you to know what's the hope to which he has called you. What are the riches of his glorious inheritance, saints? What is the immeasurable greatness of his power toward those of us who believe, according to the working of his great might, that he worked in Christ when he raised him from the dead, and seated him at his right hand in the heavenly places, far above all rule and authority and power and dominion. Goes on to talk about Christ's role and how God put everything under his feet, subjected everything to him, and the church is the fullness of him. And here we go. And you were dead. So, important things to understand here as you connect chapter 1 and 2 together. I'm going to do one more just to make sure we understand it. So here we go. Chapter 2, but God being rich in mercy. Let's click on that. Mercy, Elios. Go down. Kindness or goodwill towards the miserable and the afflicted, join with the desire to help them. Of God towards men, in general providence, the mercy and clemency of God in providing an offering to men salvation by Christ. You can go click on Vines and read Vines too. All right. So, blueletterbible.org. Hopefully this helped you. If you have any questions, post them in the comments beneath this video. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.